What if you had a tool that would automatically determine security vulnerabilities and any other issues in your code, so you don't have to rely on yourself or other code reviewers to find those?
And then review the reviews, of course.
Such tool does exist, and it's called Amazon Code Guru. With Amazon Code Guru, you could just set it up to run automatically on your repository. If you don't have an AWS account, I have this video that would help you create one if you need to. Once you do have an account, feel free to log into it. You can search for Amazon Code Guru. Here we are provided with a few options. We have this panel on the left and we have this getting started screen. Code Guru basically consists of three different things: Code Guru Security, Code Guru Profiler, and Code Guru Reviewer. From what I've read, Code Guru Reviewer is kinda old and Code Guru Security replaces it. It should in theory work better and find more vulnerabilities. And Code Guru Profiler basically profiles your code and gives you recommendations based on how your code runs. We're not going to get into the profiler today. We're mostly going to talk about reviewer and security. Let's start with the reviewer. Here on the left, we can just go to code reviews, and as you can see, I did do some testing, but the way you actually get started with that, you go to repositories and click associate repository and create a code review. And it looks like my access token was expired. That means I probably need to refresh this page. Now we get an option to select which source provider we want. Here we're going to go with GitHub. If you're using either of the other ones, then feel free to connect those. We're just gonna click connect to your GitHub account, and it says not available in this region. It doesn't really tell me which region it's not available in, but we can just use with US West 2 Oregon. And then we go to repository location. So our repository location is going to be an app called time tracking. And we don't need to worry about the encryption key. And then the source branch is going to be, I believe, main. And we don't care about code review name. And we don't have any custom configuration file. Eventually, after you've done your default analysis, you may want to be able to exclude certain findings because you may not find them important to waste time on fixing them. And then you just click associate repository and run analysis. And now it's going to start running the full repository analysis. While we're waiting, I'm going to just show you that this is just a simple Lambda application. A while back, I wanted to track where the heck my time goes. I didn't really like any available options on the market because they were taking way too many clicks. So what I did was make this Lambda application that connected with Twilio. All I had to do was send a text to a Twilio number that I created, and then this app would handle starting an activity and ending an activity. Basically, anytime you get a message, it would end the previous activity and start the new one. As you can tell, the problem with that approach is you cannot really track two activities at once, but that's not a big deal. Here, we're mostly gonna look at this incoming SMS SQS handler .java, and all it does, it receives an event, processes the message, and then deletes it so we no longer receive it from the SQS, gets the body of the message, updates class record with the end time, and then it creates a new one and saves it into a DynamoDB database and deletes the SQS message. Currently, we should not have any vulnerabilities or anything to fix in our code because our code is perfect. And it finally finished. As you can see here, it says it completed full review of the code. We can click on here and it basically says no recommendations. What we can do now is introduce some vulnerabilities. We're going to do a couple things. First of all, we're going to use the referential comparison with strings, which is always going to return false, and it should mark it as something we need to fix. We should use .equals here instead. And then just for fun, we're creating a writer, and then we write something to the file, and then we don't close the file. So in theory, we should use try with resources approach. We want to see if Code Guru determines this as something we need to fix. And then we're gonna push it, and now we can go back to our GitHub repository and click compare and pull request. So we create pull request. Now what will happen is Code Guru determines that we have created a new pull request, and it's going to run the code review on just the code changes that we introduced. As you can see, it's already running, and you would think it should finish much faster than the full repository analysis, but it really hasn't been my experience. For some reason, it still takes forever. While it is still running, maybe I can show you the pricing. So the pricing is for 90 days, you can examine up to 100,000 lines of code per AWS account. After 90 days, for the first 100,000 lines, you pay $10 a month. For additional 100,000 lines, you pay $30 per each 100,000 lines. And that's for the reviewer. We're going to also examine the security. And as you can see here, CodeGuru Security is currently available for free while it is in public preview. We can see that review of our pull request has finally completed, and yay, we got 3 recommendations. We can click here and see what those are. Here it found that we should be using .equals. Then on line 72 and 73, it basically said that we have a resource leak, which means we're not closing the resource that we've opened. So did a good job at finding it. But now let's also look at the pull request itself, and we actually get those messages right in the pull request. So we don't actually need to go here in code reviews in AWS account. The comments will be automatically published for us. So that's the Amazon CodeGuru reviewer. Now let's go to security and see what's up there. We go to integrations, click on integrate with GitHub or GitHub Enterprise. If you have already configured IAM role, for example, if you've already onboarded a repository, you may not need to do this again. But if you've never done this before, you would click open template in CloudFormation, give it a stack name, for example, GitHub AWS CodeGuru, and then you would need to specify your repo in this format. First your organization, or in our case our username, and then the repo name, which is time tracking, and then the wildcard for all branches. If you don't know where to find this, so this would be your organization and this would be your repo. And now you can skip the role name, acknowledge that it might create IAM resources. Now it actually will create them, and then click create stack. And that should take just about a minute. What it's doing now is creating IAM role in your AWS account. And the reason for that is so your GitHub actions could access your AWS account to like upload the scan results and stuff like that. Our IAM role has been created, so we don't need to do this step anymore. Now what we need to do is just follow step 2, create a custom workflow in GitHub. So we go to our GitHub account, open the repository. We can just copy this code right now. We go to actions, new workflow, set up a new workflow, and we literally just paste what we just copied, click commit changes, and we can just commit it directly to the main branch. Now we can go back to actions and see that it is queued, and we can view the logs. It's going to go through a few different things. If you followed the previous step in creating a CloudFormation template correctly, you should have no problem. And then finally it runs CodeGuru Security. So it prints the findings, and as you can see, there are no results because currently our main branch is clear and there are no vulnerabilities, nothing we need to fix. And then the last thing it tries to do is upload the results back to AWS, but it says code scanning is not enabled for this repository. Please enable code scanning in the repository settings. In order for us to fix this code scanning is not enabled for this repository, we need to go and change some repository settings. Actually, if you go back to integrations, you can see it's listed as the last step. It tells you that you can go to the scans page and look at the scans, and it does say that we have had the scan at 256. There are currently 0 open findings, but the problem is if you go back here to integrations, it says that in order to view this in GitHub, you need to enable code scanning. So in order for us to do that, we need to go back to our repository, go to settings, go to code security and analysis, and we should have an option to enable code scanning. So we can click on this document and see that we can just configure the default one. So here, we've clicked on settings, we've clicked on code security and analysis, but we don't have this code scanning session. Why is that? The reason for that is that my repository is currently private. So what we need to do is go to general. Obviously, if you don't want to have your repository public, then I guess you'll just have to go and log in to your AWS account and see the code scanning results there. Alternatively, if you are on GitHub Enterprise, then this option should be available for you already. But since I don't have it, I'm going to temporarily change the visibility to public so I could show you how to set it up. Gives me a bunch of warnings like, hey, do we really want to do this? So we say yes, we do. So now if we go to code security and analysis, and now we do have this code scanning thing in here, we can click set up, click default. It automatically determined that it's for Java or Kotlin. And then we just enable CodeQL. Here you would see that this setting up message is going, which is fine. It just performs the first scan, which might take, it says, a while. If we go back to our pull request, there is still nothing. What we can do is actually merge it just for the sake of it. We can delete the branch. And now our action, as you can see, is running again. And I think that's because in our workflows, we're only running it on push on main. If you want to run it on pull requests, you would need to change that. GitHub actions on pull request on any branch. So as you can see here, what we can do is change it to on pull request and then branches, and then you can use basically 2 asterisks, but that's homework for you to figure out. So now we're waiting for it to complete again to see what vulnerabilities it's going to report, and it should report at least the resource leaking part. Now we go back here, we go to findings, and as you can see, now we have 2 new findings because we merged things into main. And as you can see, both of them are for the resource leak, but not the string comparison. Before you go and try to set it up, just make sure that the repo you're trying to set it up for has a supported programming language. And it looks like that CodeGuru Security currently supports Java, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, CloudFormation, Terraform, Go, and Ruby. And I would imagine that it's the same for CodeGuru Code Review. And if you want to learn which 3 AWS Lambda settings you need to change right now, then watch the next video.